guys, it's Dr. Sammy Pryor, and I'm wearing this festive necklace and my pretty little shirt with ruffles here because it's New Year's Eve, and I am taping this now, so when this comes out, it'll be past the new year, but I want to wish you all a happy new year. Mwah, I love you all. But anyways, we're in part 2. We stopped last time because it was a lot. So if you haven't watched part 1, go watch part 1, okay? We're building on each one, okay? So basically, we were talking about the microbiota and basically having this bacteroidetes and firmicutes, the ratio flipped in obesity, okay? So what we saw is that in the last video, yeah, you want to go back and watch that, but bacteroidetes is very protective against obesity, having higher amounts of it, and the gain of adiposity. So this study right here, Lay in 2010, suggested that obese participants receiving a low caloric diet for 12 months showed increases in the bacteroidetes count associated with weight loss. Okay, so what does that say? That says you go with a lower calorie diet, guess what? You're going to be increasing that bacteroidetes. And we know children in Africa, they have a much higher bacteroidetes than people of Western diets. And the reason's because they eat a lot more vegetable matter. And you know what is low in calories? Vegetable matter, right? Plant matter. So there's probably a strong correlation that people that are in this 12 months calorie deficient, they're eating a lot of plants. That's increasing the bacteroidetes, which is very good because we know that ratio is flipped in obese people. The firmicutes counts are way more than the bacteroidetes. Okay, and the last bug that they're talking in this with the microbial changes is Akkermansia municiphilia. I made a whole video on that because it is just one of the keystones of the gut. I would suggest you go watch that if you hadn't watched that. But we know that it has a remarkable effect on the metabolism, and that has been proven in human studies. It also has a protective effect against the gut permeability, and as you'll see as we're talking in this video today, that's a huge contributor to obesity, and the endotoxemia, which is the LPS, which is part of some bad bugs, bacterial cell walls, and when they die, that gets released, and if it gets in your bloodstream, it's highly inflammatory to the body, okay? And we know that Akkermansia municiphilia increases your immune system function and improves glucose homeostasis, okay? So we know that individuals that have a higher amount of Akkermansia municiphilia, they just have better outcomes of health, okay? And yeah, antibiotics can wipe these babies out, and you don't, they don't exist in nature, okay? You can't get them in food. You can't get them, yeah, you get them from your mom and when you're born, okay? So there is one I talked about in that video on Akkermansia, so go watch that. But anyways, so now the studies moved into mechanism of action, why basically we know the gut microbiome changes your risk for obesity, and so they're talking about the mechanism here. So they're talking about, we know that the gut microbes are involved in the lipid, so your fats, their metabolism, and we know that approximately 5 to 10% of the bile acids are biotransformed by the anaerobic gut microbiota. These include the Bacteroides, the Eubacterium, and Clostridium species. And then the rest of that is secreted in the feces. So this really demonstrates that the role of the gut microbiome is in the digestion and metabolism of the dietary fat, okay? Because they're biotransforming the bile salts into useful ones, okay? We also know that the gut microbiome has been linked to the essential fatty acids metabolism and even into the polysaccharide metabolism, okay? And nitrogen. Nitrogen is a major source of the dietary protein, and it's essential for these microbial growth and the assimilation of the carbohydrates and assembly of the short-chain fatty acids, which we'll talk more about. Hence, it's crucial to consume a varied diet with adequate daily intake of protein from different food sources, okay? So I've been reading this book called The China Study. The China Study is fascinating. We in America, we eat too much protein, okay? And of bad sources. In China, they only eat about 20% of their diet, 10 to 20% of their diet in protein, and they're much more likely to get that protein in plant sources, okay? In America, as you know, all you Americans watching this, meat and cheese, those are like two of the big protein sources in America. No other country really gets all their protein that way. Where they get their protein: whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. Okay? Yeah, okay. But anyways, that's for another video. But you'll hear about some stuff in here. Okay, so now we're keeping on the mechanism. What is it? These short-chain fatty acids, which we just mentioned. These are things that the microbes make, okay? And these are playing a role in our energy metabolism, especially at the colonic cell level. They really are important for the health of the gut, but the short-chain fatty acids are produced by colonic fermentation involving anaerobic catabolism of dietary fiber and protein. Okay, and short-chain fatty acids are the microbial waste products produced by microbes to balance the homeostasis of the gut. The short-chain fatty acids, specifically acetate, propionate, and butyrate, may have an impact on the human metabolism. Okay, the beneficial effects of these products have been observed on body weight, insulin sensitivity, and glucose balance. Short-chain fatty acids are also able to strengthen the gut lining and reduce inflammation and have a positive effect on lipid metabolism. Okay, and short-chain fatty acids are able to regulate satiety and reduce appetite. Okay, thus playing a major role in food intake and energy consumption. Furthermore, short-chain fatty acids are able to act on the free fatty acid receptor 2 to stimulate the release of the hormone peptide YY, thus playing a direct and significant role in inducing satiety. Okay, and we know in previous studies that it has been shown that dietary supplementation with butyrate decreases insulin resistance via increasing the mitochondrial function and energy expenditure, and is protective against obesity caused by a high-calorie diet. And so we know consumption of a higher quality whole grains or bran, which is the outer layer of grains, can increase butyrate production, thus helping increase the biodiversity of the gut microbiota. And in that first video, if you didn't watch it, go watch it, but that we talked about the gut diversity. Okay, So in summary, short-chain fatty acids are known for their advantageous modulatory effects on human immunity, gastrointestinal epithelial cell integrity, so helping you get from getting leaky gut, and lipid metabolism, glucose homeostasis, and appetite. Okay, so important, these short-chain fatty acids. Okay, and then the last thing in this section of how the gut microbiome really influences your obesity risk is inflammation. Okay, so the gut microbiota, it may alter inflammatory factors by modulating the inflammatory cytokine secretion. So we know higher levels of IL-6, tumor necrosis factor, and C-reactive protein are all biomarkers for inflammation and appear to be associated with obesity. Okay, we know people who are obese have a higher circulation of these inflammatory markers. Can it be due to the gut? Absolutely. Okay, it has to do with the obesity too, but really the gut, the gut's the big one. Okay, now, harping on this one again, but it's in the study for a good reason. So the use of antibiotics is correlated with an increased risk of developing multiple inflammatory disorders and has been linked to alterations in the gut microbiome. Duh, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. When you take these, they wipe out the good bacteria, okay? Antibiotic-induced dysbiosis induces weight gain and increases very low-density lipoprotein, high-density lipoprotein ratios in animal studies. Okay, so that means lowering your HDL, which has a protective effect, and increasing the VLDL, which is bad for cardiovascular risk. So yeah, antibiotics do that. Okay, and moreover, exposure to antibiotics at 2 years of age increases your likelihood of developing obesity later in life. Let that sink in. How many parents have given their babies antibiotics at 2 years? That is highly increasing their risk for obesity later in their life. And why is that? It has to do with the microbiome changes. And like I said, you have this Akkerman's immunophilia, highly linked to your metabolism. It can be wiped out with antibiotics. Wiped out. And you cannot get this in your food. You do not get this in the environment. You get it from your mommy. Okay? Simple as that. Okay. And we know that alterations to the gut microbiota after use of antibiotics may lead to weight gain. Yes. Okay. So we know bacterial dysbiosis related to increases in the Firmicutes species, the Clostridium and Eubacterium rectali, has been linked to alterations in the gastrointestinal peptides. So these are those hormonal chemicals I was talking about in the first video. These include gastrin, cholecystokinin, somatostatin, and ghrelin. And that's like really high science that I know I don't expect y'all to understand, but you can think of ghrelin as, grr, I'm hungry, okay? So if it's altering your signaling of ghrelin, you know that's a bad thing. You don't want to be more hungry than you need to be, okay? And it says eventually, so if you have this bacterial dysbiosis with having more Firmicutes, eventually these changes may result in decreased satiety and increased appetite and food intake. Okay, so that's all we're going to talk about in this video, part 2. A lot, right? A lot. We talked about a lot. So let's kind of sum it up. I'll go back. We'll kind of sum it up real quick, okay? Because that was a lot. And guys, I know part 1, part 2, yeah, you might need to watch these a few times, yeah, but the key points I'm going to sum up right here. Okay, so we know the gut microbiome transforms bile, so we know it works on lipid metabolism. We know it works on essential fatty acid metabolism. We know it works on dietary liposaccharide metabolism. So those are like your macronutrients, right? And we also know nitrogen is a big part of the like microbial growth and assimilation of the carbohydrates and assembly of the short chain fatty acids. So having enough nitrogen in the diet is really important for the microbes, and we know that they have a role in your protein metabolism. So the gut microbes are absolutely essential in your diet assimilation into the body, right? Using our diet to help our energy pathways, okay? And we know that the short chain fatty acids, they help heal your gut from leaky gut. They can protect the intestinal lining. They help the human metabolism. They help your immune function. They really are important in insulin sensitivity and have a positive effect on lipid metabolism and can help reduce your appetite and increase your satiety. Okay, so these short chain fatty acids, they're byproducts of bacteria when they are fermenting fiber and some proteins, but primarily fiber in the diet. And that's why fiber is really important. And we do know that butyrate has been shown to increase your mitochondrial function and energy expenditure and decrease that insulin resistance that's common in people with metabolic syndrome or diabetes, okay? And we know that a consumption of a high quality fiber, right, whole grains and bran really can increase the butyrate production and thus helping increase the biodiversity of the gut microbiota. So all those individuals that are like, oh, the carnivore diet. No, the gut needs the fiber from whole grains, okay? That's just a given. Some people are more sensitive than others to them, but yeah. Okay, in summary, and I'm just going to summarize it again because it's so important. Short chain fatty acids are known for advantageous modulatory effects on human immunity, gastrointestinal epithelial cell integrity, lipid metabolism, glucose homeostasis, and appetite. So highly important. Okay, last thing we covered, inflammation, gut dysbiosis, highly linked with obesity. What can bring on that dysbiosis? Antibiotics. And we saw antibiotics increase your inflammatory VLDL and lower the HDL. At 2 years of age, exposure to antibiotics increases your risk of obesity later in life. And we know that after antibiotic use, you do have risk for weight gain issues, okay? And it really leads to a bacterial dysbiosis, and that bacterial dysbiosis, especially with an increase in the Firmicutes species, especially the Clostridium and the Eubacterium rectale, that has been linked to alterations in the gastrointestinal peptides, so these neurohormonal secretions that your gut has, and these specifically are gastrin, cholecystokinin, somatostatin, and ghrelin. Grr, I'm hungry. And eventually, these changes may result in decreased satiety and increased appetite and food intake. Okay? So, I know, a lot. But I love you guys. That's part 2. We're going to have part 3, maybe even part 4. This is a long study, and I don't want to overwhelm you with each video because it's a lot of science. But I hope you're getting it. having a the gut microbiome is extremely important in obesity, and basically we're just showing you why. Okay, and now in the next videos we're really going to give you like steps to how to help this. Okay, and we've already uncovered them through the last 2 videos, so go watch the first one if you missed it. That's all this video is about. I know it's a lot, but I love you guys. Mwah! Have a good, happy new year. I know this will be past it, but you know, it'll still be January. So I love you guys. And if you could like this and you could subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you won't miss part 3. Yes. Okay. All right, guys. Have a good new year. Bye.